Lecture 1. What is Chicano-Chicanx studies? What is Chicano-Chicana or Chicanx studies? We'll talk about the X later. Here's a straightforward definition. Chicano-Chicana Chicanx studies is an interdisciplinary academic field dedicated to the study of the history, culture, politics, and the lived experiences of people of Mexican descent in the United States. But this definition, while accurate, only scratches the surface and it doesn't really capture the complexity, the beauty, the power, or the transformative nature of this field. It doesn't speak to the spaces of belonging and resistance Chicanx Studies creates in colleges and universities, or to what it means for the students whose lives are changed by it. I would say that Chicano Studies is a living praxis, tiene corazón, has heart. For me, is what kept me in college and passionate about what I was learning. It was where I found like-minded people, a sense of purpose, a home away from home. It was where I felt seen, validated, and embraced with cariño. Chicanic Studies is not about knowledge for knowledge's sake. Our aim is to cultivate well rounded scholars and critical thinkers who are deeply committed to their communities and aware of their historical responsibilities. This is why we engage with topics such as social movements, immigration, labor rights, health and reproductive justice, gender and sexuality, educational equity, right? Our classrooms often welcome community leaders and activists who are doing this work on the ground because again, theory and praxis must go hand in hand. So, first and foremost, Chicano Studies does work that matters. Three pillars. To better understand Chicanx studies, we need to look at what I consider to be the three central pillars of the discipline. One, academic inquiry, two, community building, and three, social transformation. Let's start with the first one, academic inquiry. Chicanx studies is first and foremost an academic discipline, one that is interdisciplinary and increasingly transdisciplinary. I'll explain these terms. To be interdisciplinary means that we draw on the tools, methods, and theories from disciplines in the humanities and social sciences, such as in history, sociology, anthropology, political science, etc. So these disciplines are much, much older, right? And we use what is useful to us in our study of Chicanx studies. Many of those initial scholars in Chicano studies came out of sociology or came out of history. And when Chicano studies departments got created, they all came together, talked to one another, shared knowledge, collaborated, build departments that were interdisciplinary in that sense because it brought together the expertise from different fields, different disciplines. And as students kept learning, right, majoring in this field, they would take classes from historians, sociologists, anthropologists, people in the humanities that looked at theater and film or visual culture, right? And so then we began to have very well rounded, very well read Chicano scholars, right? In our graduate education, as we go through it in Chicano studies, we will choose a topic or area of study, and that will become our area of expertise. And we have to form a committee to help us with our work, that would read our papers, help us in our research. And sometimes that committee, it's made up of people from different disciplines. For example, in my committee, I had someone that was trained in philosophy, someone that looked at visual culture and literature. I have someone that was more of a historian, And so there's ways to bring together into one room people with different expertise, different from different disciplines, and through that conversation create something that is interdisciplinary as well. As we go on, we have more and more people that are coming straight out of Chicano studies and who have always had that interdisciplinary lens, right? So, for example, my in my dissertation as a graduate student, I focus on the history of the idea of racial mixing or mestizaje, and I looked at it from a transnational lens. So I looked at both Mexico and the United States. And in my research, I had to look at history, of course, because I'm looking at the history of an idea. But I also had to look at literature, political speeches, law, muralism. And I also looked at ways that ideas travel back and forth. How did the US discourse on race and racial mixing influence Mexico's or Latin Americans' discourse on race and racial mixing? So by necessity, I had to bring together different tools, different methods from across the disciplines to do my work and create something that will be interdisciplinary, right? But we also try to be in ethnic studies, in Chicanx studies, we aspire, we hope to be transdisciplinary, meaning that we seek to go beyond the existing disciplines, the limitations and biases and baggage that a lot of these disciplines carry, as with the recognition that these disciplines originally came out of institutions that did not include people like us, that were at times complicit with colonization, that at times were used to justify oppression, exploitation of indigenous people, of Black people, people of color, and like I said, did not have people of color of these in those disciplines, in these departments, did not have voices that came from working class people, from immigrants, right, from LGBTQ people. And because of that, there are limits to the knowledge and the tools that these disciplines produce. So that means that we cannot, in ethnic studies and Chicanx studies, we cannot simply use those methods and frameworks without reworking them, right? Because if we did, we may end up reproducing the same type of racism, sexism, classism, homophobia that inform the work of these non Chicano scholars, right? And so, because again, in our work, the idea is that we are challenging old oppressive old oppressive frameworks. And because of that, we have to be very rigorous with our work, right? Our intellectual approach has to be grounded in a long historical view. We have to acknowledge the enduring legacies of colonization, of empire, but also resistance, right? So I guess one central thing to any of the work that we do, be it in literature or in theater or in history or looking at politics, we are always very much aware of this history of colonization and resistance. We're very much aware of power relations. We're very much aware of the work of ideology, the way that ideas influence behavior and beliefs, and also always uplifting those voices of the community, examples of resistance, all with the hope of eventually reaching a new society, a new space, a new order, right? Pillar number 2, community building. Chicanx Studies is also a space for building comunidad, community. It provides support systems for our students, many of whom are first generation college students, children of immigrants, working class, students of color. And what we try to do is create a space of belonging, which often means transforming the university itself, providing services, having spaces like cultural centers, visually changing the look of the campus through murals, through having cultural events like um, celebrating Cinco de Mayo or Mexican Independence Day, having car shows, having Aztec dancers, having mural workshops, having events that not only are for students to come and see each other, but also maybe invite their parents, the greater community. And ultimately, we seek to create a space for the community to be on the college campus, the university campus, right? To blur that division, especially in a community college, but also at the university level. And the idea is that what we're doing on campus already, without having to wait for students to finish their degree and get their education, is that they can already contribute to their community while they're students, and that the community can bring their knowledge and voices and expertise to help these students as well, right? And so, in all ways possible, we build community. Pillar number 3, social transformation. Chicana Studies is ultimately a force for social change. It is about praxis, the union of theory and action. This is what Paulo Freire, in his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed, talks about. And the idea here is that what we learn in the classroom must be carried into the world, right? That as the student grows, transforms himself or herself through education, they're also engaging in transforming the world, right? And so we want students that are not only academically grounded, that have good reading, writing, comprehension, critical thinking skills, right? But that these skills are used to change their world, to be agents of social change. And the first way that we attempt to direct students in that direction is that we teach students with cariño. And cariño here, it's yes, it's love and affection. And I think about it as also just showing genuine care, empathy, and respect for students when they come into the classroom, right? We want to make sure that students feel that their knowledge, their history, their families, their struggles, their language, their culture, all of these things are respected and acknowledged and elevated in the classroom. So we want to affirm that the students already come in with the wealth of knowledge, right? That they have cultural wealth. And this is a pedagogy or a way of teaching that affirms community, right? And that teaches students that success is not individualistic, right? That yes, individually, we do want to achieve our academic goals, our career goals, right? But that success should always be tied to the community, to responsibility, to family, to the neighborhood, right? And so that eventually sometimes students come with self-esteem issues, right? Doubt. And so as we nurture students, encourage them to love themselves, to love their culture and their families and their communities, that this love would then become what fuels this commitment to making things better for their communities, right? And doesn't matter if they become whatever they become, lawyers, teachers, social workers, small business owners, whatever it is they do, they always have in their head that they're contributing to the betterment of their community, that each generation will get the next generation in a better position for liberation, decolonization. In this way, Chicano studies is not just an academic discipline, but it is a discipline informed by social movement and also engaged in social movement. It is a home, a space for students within the college community. It is a community creating force in the college, but also creating community and institution, right? It is a mirror in some ways that shows the student their value, the value of their history and their culture and contributions, and that ultimately also it's a call to action. This has been lecture one of Introduction to Chicana, Chicano, Chicanx Studies, el podcast with el profe Agustín Palacios. Please continue to listen.